18 inches by 14. When positioning the amplifier, I want to make sure I can get to my controls here on the end. That'll be the most important. All right, I'm going to start with 18 by 14. Here is our 18 by 14 piece. Amplifier is going to sit somewhere in this area here. Bring this in, and that. Don't need anything around the back side of the amplifier, so we can keep that narrow. Move this here. This gives us something. This. And I'll just copy this shape over to this size. This probably will get a little bit shorter too. I think it's just a tad bit too long. But I'm gonna wait until I get this cut out first. Let's head over to the table saw. So after a little saw action, this is the basic style shape that we've come up with. We do have to heat the area up here and here to put some bends in it that are on the floor. Still might want to remove some of this, but let's take it into the car and just see how it looks. I'll have to heat it up through here and here and push it down into place. I want to round these edges too. Before I heat it up, I want to round over the edges. To heat this up, we're going to use our torch. Start from the back side, twist it around like this. Once you get it nice and flexible, set it in the car. So just line it up in place and push the panel down into place. Just kind of manhandle it into where you want it to be. I like to just keep touching it but not holding it because it is really hot until you get it where you want it. You can bend these in different directions. You have a lot of freedom with the movement while it's hot like this. You just keep touching it until you feel like it's hard. So you're gonna be here for a minute or two. If you have like a wet sponge or something like that, you can always use that to make it cool down faster. While I'm here looking in this corner, I also want to take some of this off and give it more of an arc. This side is fine. If that cooled off, this will be the final look. As much as I would like to trim a little bit off here, I don't think I'm going to have to. But I do need to set the seat back in and just make sure, do one final test before we wire it up. While you have the seat in right now, also mark where your screw holes are. There's tons of room underneath here, which of course you can't see that well, but yeah, it looks great. The seat back out, I'll meet you over on the bench. We'll start wiring this thing up. First step, screwing the amplifier down into place. We have way more room up front here than I thought we had, so I'm pretty happy about that. I can move this amp up, check my gapping here, make sure everything looks good. Sand down the pointy screw things on the back side of the amplifier. One thing I need to do that I just thought about before we start wiring this stuff up is find out which one of these wires, positive, negative, right, left, and all that. To do that, I have my PT9A Plus polarity checkers, and this gives me the ability to create a pulse that it'll click and start making that pop. Then I have a second one that I can walk over to the car and check to see what speaker it is and if I got positive or negative. That's the tweeter, and of course I got it wrong. But at least starts me in the right direction that I know which one is what. Moving on to my next pair. This is one on the passenger side, and it's the tweeter. Ooh. I got it right that time. When doing this testing is not a process of elimination. We have to test every pair. All our speaker wires popped and we know what is going where. We can get back over to the bench and get this harness wired up to the amplifier. Speaker wires are gonna attach right here and then we'll cut them to length. Using my wire ruler to space out properly. Drill my holes in there. Now I need to just kind of figure out where the wires are gonna route. I like to keep them close in tight to the amplifier. We'll be putting wire ferrules on the ends of the wire. Wire ferrules are sleeves that protect the wires so that when you torque it down, it doesn't get all tore up. Add a piece of blue heat shrink so we know this is the remote turn on. With that done, I'm gonna move from left to right across, screwing in all of my speaker wires, putting ferrules on the ends, as well as some red and black heat shrink so I know which one is positive and negative. We're gonna use channel A for the tweeters and channel B for the mid bass. With the last zip tie in place, our speaker wires and remote turn on are in. Moving on to our power section, I've already flex loomed the ground and power. We do the whole wire. Ground towards the speaker wires, positive is on the outside. These screws use a bigger Allen key than the speakers. These wires also have ferrules on them. Make sure when screwing down, you tighten these things up. Do not leave them loose. When you leave them loose, they create heat because they're moving. You can cause a fire. You can cause severe damage to the amplifier. Power's next. Both of these wires are gonna come out here and turn up because they're gonna be coming up the passenger side of the car. These wires are gonna be coming up the center console into the dash area. Adding some zip ties to hold these down just like this. Grabbing the wire ruler. 3 quick holes, line this up. I'll finish these up and get some zip ties in. The last step is adding in 2 6-foot RCAs. One of the big things about RCAs that people are like, oh, like this has a little flag right here. It says connect to source. And then they say they're directional. And the reason why these is on here is they have a drain wire, meaning there's a 3rd wire that's wrapped into each one of these that is connected on this end, but not on that end. And the reason it's for that is for noise. So it's not like it's special copper or anything like that. It's just an additional noise filter that's put in through the RCAs when it's twisted together. If you wire them in backwards, it's not going to do anything. All it's going to do is move the noise the opposite direction. The signal will still play, and if your car has no noise, it really doesn't matter. Some heat shrink to 2 of the RCAs for left and right. Obviously you have red and clear for left and right. The reason why we did this though is to show that this is our tweeter channel, and then the non-shrink wrapped will be B, which is our mid-bass channel. On this amplifier, we could have just plugged into A and flicked the switch and been fine, which in reality is really all we need to do because we don't have front to rear fader. It's just pure front. The reason why we're not doing that though is because the radio also has a feature called network mode. So even though this amplifier will do bi-amping, we're not going to use it for that. We're going to use the radio to do that. 2 of the channels on the radio can be tweeter, 2 of the channels on the radio can be mid-range. It has all the corresponding crossovers, and when we get to that point, we'll show you how that works. In the meantime, now that we have these plugged in, I'm going to dress these 2 wires up here, get them zip tied into place. With the RCA in place, the last thing to do before we get it into the car is put our little metal trim piece back in place that we took off to get to the screws. That way we don't forget to do it in the end. Check the amplifiers, dip switches, and gains just to make sure that everything is off that needs to be off. Make sure my gains are all the way down. Typically amplifier manufacturers for some reason send the amps with the gains up. Kind of annoying, but whatever. Our input switch is correct. With all that done, let's get this into the car, get these wires ran.